HOA Karen blocked the paramedics?
It's protocol.
The fall of a suburban tyrant. Have you ever seen a simple rule, meant to keep things orderly, spiral into a tragedy that shakes an entire community? I have. I watched a sturdy iron gate, built to protect a quiet neighborhood, become the barrier that cost a good man his life all because one person clung to power like it was worth more than human decency. My name is Henry Caldwell, and for nearly 4 decades, I was a project manager, unraveling knots in corporate systems, streamlining chaos into efficiency. When I retired to the serene Maple Grove estates, I thought my days of fixing broken processes were behind me. I wanted nothing more than to tend my garden, read biographies, and savor the calm I'd earned. But systems, I've learned, are only as good as the people running them. And when the wrong person holds the reins, a system doesn't just falter, it becomes deadly. Maple Grove's system was its homeowners association, and the person in charge was its president, Margaret Hensley. She ruled with an iron grip, her word law, her bylaws gospel. Margaret and her board thought their authority was ironclad. They didn't know that my knack for dismantling broken systems wasn't confined to boardrooms. They were about to learn, in a way that would unravel their control, that when you wield bureaucracy against compassion, you invite a reckoning from someone like me. This is the story of a senseless death, a community's rage, and the meticulous dismantling of a tyrant's reign. It's about loss, justice, and the quiet satisfaction of watching an arrogant bully walk into a trap they never saw coming. The tragedy unfolds. It was a crisp Tuesday afternoon in early fall, the kind where the air smells of leaves and the neighborhood hums with quiet routine. I was trimming my azaleas when a siren's wail cut through the stillness, growing louder until it was impossible to ignore. In a place like Maple Grove, where every lawn is manicured and every mailbox matches, sirens are rare. I set down my shears and walked to the end of my driveway, peering toward the community's main entrance. There, halted by our imposing iron gate, was an ambulance, its lights flashing red and white against the orderly trees. The gate, a symbol of our enclave's exclusivity, stood firm. I watched a paramedic leap from the driver's seat, stride to the call box, and jab the button. That box connected directly to the phone of whoever was on gate duty, usually Margaret Hensley, our ever-vigilant HOA president. From my vantage point, I couldn't hear the exchange, but the paramedic's body language told a story, urgency melting into disbelief, then erupting into frustration. He waved toward the ambulance, pointed down the street, but the gate didn't budge. After what felt like forever, probably only a minute or two, slammed his fist against the call box, ran back to the vehicle, and began a clumsy 3-point turn to head for the secondary entrance half a mile away. I knew that secondary gate. Its manual lock was finicky, prone to sticking. My stomach sank. Every second counts in an emergency, and those seconds were slipping away. Later, I learned the call was for Walter Thompson, my neighbor 2 houses down. Walter, a widower in his late 70s, was the kind of man who'd share stories about his prize-winning dahlias and offer you a cold lemonade on a hot day. His daughter, Emily, visiting from out of town, had found him collapsed in his living room, clutching his chest. She'd called 911 immediately, doing everything right. But the system she trusted failed her father. The paramedics lost critical minutes at the main gate, then spent more wrestling with the secondary lock. By the time they reached Walter, his heart had stopped. He was gone. The spark of rage. The next day, a heavy silence settled over our street. Neighbors whispered the story in shocked, angry tones. The paramedics had been denied entry. Margaret Hensley, from the comfort of her home, had refused to open the gate because the ambulance service hadn't provided an official vendor registration number. Protocol, in her world, trumped a pulse. Grief blanketed Maple Grove, but beneath it simmered a fury I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't a tragic accident, it was negligence dressed up as procedure. That evening, I attended a gathering at Walter's house. Emily, his daughter, was devastated, her eyes red from crying. They wouldn't open the gate, she kept saying, her voice breaking. I don't understand. Around me, neighbors mourned, but I saw something else in their eyes, fear. Fear of Margaret, fear of the HOA's fines, its violations, its public shamings. They felt powerless. In that moment, Listening to Emily's sobs, my quiet retirement vanished. The project manager in me woke up. A good man was dead because of a senseless rule. The system wasn't just flawed, it was rotten. And I was going to burn it down. That night, I opened a new file on my laptop, Project Sentinel. The first entry was clear. Objective: total systemic overhaul of Maple Grove HOA governance. The second: justice for Walter. The first move. I started where any rational person would, with a direct appeal. Surely, faced with Walter's death, the HOA board would see the need for change. I drafted a concise email to the board, outlining the incident and proposing a simple fix. Provide emergency services with a universal override code or remote clicker, a standard practice in many gated communities. I focused on liability and safety, offering them a way to fix the problem without admitting fault. It was a professional courtesy, a chance to climb down from their indefensible position. The response came quickly, not from the board, but from Margaret herself. It was a masterclass in deflection. She offered sincere condolences for the unfortunate passing of Mr. Thompson, then pivoted to defend the HOA's security protocols, citing bylaws that required pre-registered vehicles. An override code, she claimed, would create a significant security vulnerability. Her final sentence was a slap in the face. The board has reviewed the incident and determined that our protocols were followed correctly. The matter is now closed. Closed. A man was dead, a family broken, and for Margaret, the matter was closed. My frustration hardened into resolve. This wasn't someone you could reason with, this was a system that needed dismantling. I updated Project Sentinel. Initial resolution attempt failed. Antagonist has escalated, confirming systemic rigidity and lack of accountability. Building the case. I shifted to investigation mode. Emotion was a liability. Data was my weapon. I filed a public records request with the county for the 911 call audio and the full paramedic incident report. While waiting, I dove into the HOA's governing documents, bylaws, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, and 5 years of board meeting minutes. It was tedious, filled with rules about mailbox colors and hedge heights, but I found cracks in the system. The emergency access section was vague, giving the board discretion, a loophole Margaret had exploited. Meeting minutes revealed she'd championed the gate's high-security system 3 years earlier, requiring manual phone verification for all entries. I tracked down the gate's installer, GateSafe Technologies, and called their corporate office, reaching the head of technical operations, asking if the system had an emergency override. He confirmed it died a siren-activated feature that Margaret had ordered disabled, signing a waiver to acknowledge the liability. My hand shook as I hung up. This wasn't negligence. It was willful disregard for safety. When the county records arrived, the 911 audio and paramedic report were devastating. The paramedic's voice, tight with fury, reported Margaret's refusal to open the gate. The report stated a 7-minute delay due to gate protocols, directly impacting Walter's survival chances. I had my cornerstone evidence. The waiver from GateSafe was the final nail, Margaret's signature, dismissing safety for fear of teenage pranks. The strategy takes shape. Confronting Margaret directly would let her spin a narrative. Instead, I planned a 3-pronged attack: legal pressure, community outrage, and internal betrayal. I compiled my evidence, the 911 audio, paramedic report, waiver, and bylaws, into a digital file for Emily's lawyer. I met her, gently explaining the negligence and handing her a USB drive. "Find a shark," I told her. Her grief turned to steel. "Thank you, Henry," she said. To mobilize the community, I held discreet coffee meetings with trusted neighbors, asking, "Are you concerned about emergency response times?" I shared just enough of the paramedic report to spark anger without overwhelming them. "They turned off the emergency features," said Linda, a retired nurse, her face pale. I nodded. "The annual meeting is in 6 weeks. We need to demand change." Internally, I targeted board member Stephen Lee, an accountant who'd occasionally opposed Margaret. "The HOA's liability is massive," I told him. "A lawsuit could hit board members personally." His eyes widened. "Think about your fiduciary duty," I said. The seeds were planted. The reckoning. Margaret, oblivious, tightened her grip, issuing rules to curb gatherings. It backfired, fueling a growing email chain led by Linda. We drafted a petition demanding an emergency override, a safety audit, and transparency about the siren feature's deactivation. Over 70% of households signed it. Jow, the room was packed with angry residents. At the annual meeting, I presented the petition and evidencia timeline, the paramedic report, and the waiver. Margaret's face fell as I revealed her signature on the waiver. The crowd erupted, and Stephen moved for a no-confidence vote. Margaret fled in disgrace. The aftermath. Stephen became interim president, implementing the petition's demands. A safety audit exposed 17 protocol failures, leading to a bylaw overhaul. Emily's lawsuit settled out of court, costing Margaret personally. She sold her house and left. I chaired a new safety committee, transforming Maple Grove into a cooperative community. Our story sparked statewide legislation hinting at better safety access for gated communities. Lessons learned. The power of collective action lies in unity, not rebellion. Margaret's downfall was a lesson in the dangers of petty tyranny and the strength of informed resistance. Her arrogance underestimated the resolve of a community united by truth. What unjust rules have you faced in your life? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's talk about standing up to petty tyranny and reclaiming power through reason and unity.